Hello, I'm John Speights. Welcome to the Veterans Roundtable. Our guest for this segment is Mr. Harvey Maness. Harvey, we're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you, John. As I said, I always feel at home in a veterans environment.
Harvey is commander of our local Raleigh World War I Barracks number 690. Harvey belongs to the Veterans Organization, which is exclusive to veterans of World War I. And Harvey, the term barracks, that's similar to post or chapter or something like that?
That's correct.
And about how many veterans belong to the local chapter or barracks of the World War I's?
As of this moment, we have 52 paid members. Our dues are $5 a year. That's our local barracks, 690. Mm-hmm. And the national membership is less than 300,000. Mm-hmm. Originally, it was 4,700,000. So we are a fast vanishing group of veterans.
Oh, yes, and when and where do y'all meet locally?
Well, we meet just wherever it's convenient to us. We go through the line at Cameron Village at K&W once a month, second Thursday of each month. And we meet and eat and talk a little, and average attendance is about 8 or 9. You see, we're getting older. Average age is 88.
Oh, yes, that's too bad. And you look younger than that, but you're about how old now?
Well, I'll soon be 88.
Oh.
The average age is 88 out of total membership.
You don't look that old.
Well, I really don't feel that old, to tell you the truth. I'm very fortunate to come through World War I and be in the shape I am, comparing it with so many of our other buddies. We call each other buddies. That's our favorite way of expressing buddies. Mm-hmm. And I'm very fortunate. As commander, I have a little brood that I have to treat just like little babies, literally. They're getting incapacitated, due to the aging process.
Oh, some are bedridden?
Oh, yes. Many are bedridden, housebound, can't walk and can't drive. Many of them are widowers. And they're just lonely old men, many of them, just waiting their time to come.
Oh, yes, yes.
Sad.
Yes. Oh, incidentally, though, I believe there is one illustrious member of the local World War I barracks, Secretary of State Thad Ewart.
Oh, yeah, we have, well, we only have 52 paid members, I said, and from this area. That's when the barracks covers this area. That may be small, but there's not too many living, so therefore you can't join unless you're living. Be honorable discharge a World War I veteran. We have some 2 or 3 very, very outstanding citizens as a member of our barracks. We have Ed Edgerton, he's a millionaire, mm-hmm. and Thad Ewart, he's the oldest rat in the barn, Oh,
yes.
He's a World War I veteran. But he's much younger than we because he was with the SATC at State College during the war. But nevertheless, he's a World War I veteran.
Oh, yes, sir.
So he's one of our outstanding members, I would say.
Oh, Harvey, does the national group have a publication?
Yes, we have a publication called The Torch. And would you like to know where he gets the name?
Yes, where does the word torch come from?
Well, we adopted the name of our publication in Alexandria, Virginia. It's where our national headquarters are. Mm-hmm. And it was taken back during World War I, the early part. Belgium borders Germany, and Germany had to invade Belgium in order to get France to try to win the war in 30 days, which was their concept of the war. Germany was going to win the war in 30 days. Mm-hmm. So they got into Belgium and found out the Belgians resisted. And Belgium became a battleground, as you remember. It's the biggest cemetery in the world, military cemetery in the world is in Belgium. Thousands and thousands of veterans of all nationalities are buried there. And Lieutenant Colonel John C. McCrae, a Canadian colonel, was inspired by that Flanders Field, you know, the area of France, of Belgium, Flanders Field. And he was inspired to write a poem called, and he called it In Flanders Field. May I recite that?
Oh, yes.
And it goes like this. I'm getting to your question there. In Flanders Field, the poppies grow between the crosses, row on row that mark our place. The birds still scarcely sang above, scarce heard beneath the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep in Flanders Field. Now that's the first reference to the word torch. It's something you hold up as an inspiration or a guide or a light. And we named our national magazine after that. Incidentally, we threw that torch to World War II boys, the World War II following World War I 30 years later. Same adversary, Germany, same geographic location. And we threw that torch to the World War II boys. They held it high. They won that war unconditionally, as we won World War I unconditionally. And they, in turn, a few years later, handed the torch to the frozen hands of the boys in Korea. Another war, the third one. Mm-hmm. And they, too, held it high, despite the fact that only one hand was available to catch the torch, because the other one was tied behind them, literally. You've heard that said, and it's the truth. They wouldn't let them win the war. They wouldn't let them win the war. Anyway, they held that torch high. They passed it on in turn to the Vietnam boys. Now, I wonder where that torch is today. Our national pride, our national feeling is just sometimes we have to look hard for it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where that torch is today. I still hope that we'll still hold it high. And I believe veterans organizations will keep it high as long as we live. That's the torch I'm talking about. Freedom.
Yes. And I believe you belong to some of the other veteran service organizations.
Yes, sir. I'm a member of the American Legion Post No. 1, have been for 64 years. I was joined in 1919 when we were organized. Past commander. Oh. And I've been active in the American Legion all these years. Mm-hmm. And last year I had the distinct privilege of being invited as a life member in the VFW. Oh. And I'm a proud member of the VFW by virtue of the fact that I was a member of the American Expeditionary Forces that went over. And that and World War I is my three veterans organizations I'm primarily interested in. Oh. I think veterans are the greatest group of people in the world. There's 30 million of them in America living. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. And I think they're the greatest group of people in the world. I love every one of them because we have something to be proud of that no one else in the world other than veterans have. And an American soldier, an American veteran has the greatest privilege and benefits of any veterans in all the world. There's no question about it. We're the best fed, we're the best clothed, we're the best equipped. We have the most elaborate management of conducting our wars. We're thought more of, we're honored more, and we're respected more than any group of men in the world that are veterans. And the brown shirts, you know, Mussolini's in World War I, look what happened to them. Well, the Nazis, you know, created after World War I through Hitler, look what happened to the veterans. The veterans of the world just they're not treated like American veterans, held high in esteem and respect. It's true that a lot of people don't tip their hats like they should to the Vietnam boys. You know, that was a war that all wars are hell, all wars are useless, mm-hmm. all wars are futile. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, when I went in, I was told that this is the only war that was going to be fought to win, to end all wars and to make the world safe for democracy. I believe that.
Oh, the World War I.
World War I was the only war that's ever been fought to make the world safe for democracy and to end all wars. Just think if we had ended that.
Yes, the soldiers there were young and idealistic.
Right, and we didn't have drugs in those days, we didn't have, we had one guy that burned his draft card. His name was Grover Cleveland Bergdorf from Philadelphia. He was a rich, wealthy playboy. And they court-martialed him and put him in the penitentiary. He died in the penitentiary. That's the way we treated the draft dodgers, with all respect to people who are in favor of doing that. I can't see that, because we were saying, my country, right or wrong, my country. I still feel that way about America.
Yes.
And God bless us.
Harvey, you were telling me, though, that the German soldiers also believed in their cause, and
certainly they believed in it. The Germans wore these belts, big old belts, and they had Gott mit uns. You know what that means? That means God with us. I got one of them. And they say, God's with us. We're going to win that war. Kaiser Bill said that our cause is just. We're going to win the war. Well, so God's on our side. God is on every side. But he doesn't necessarily condone every war. And they thought they were right. We thought we were right. But we prevailed. We beat Germany twice, same adversary.
And Harvey, I believe one of the precipitating causes that brought America into the war was the sinking of the Lusitania passenger liner.
Well, that was the grand climax. Mm-hmm. They had the U-boats, mm-hmm. and that was their secret weapon, and they came down there winning because of that. But that really broke the backbone of American sentiment. In April 6, 1917, President Wilson declared war. And we stayed out as long as we could. He went in Wilson went in the second term. Well, the theory is going to keep us out of war. Well, 3 months later, we were in war. But he didn't declare it. It was forced on us. We had to go to defend our rights. And that brings me up to one of my favorite stories in World War I, if you allow me to say it.
Yes.
This German we captured over there, he speaks English pretty well, and he said, I understand how the Germans get across. That's the Iron Cross. You've seen that. That's their highest medal. He said, we understand how the French get across. How the French got across, the Frenchman soldier. That's their Croix de Guerre. That's their highest honor. We understand how the British got across, the British soldier. That's the Cross of Victoria. But we can't understand how in the hell the Americans got across. So see, those U-boats were going to put us out of business, keep America getting in the war. And if we hadn't gotten in at the last minute, Germany would have won that war.
And with all the American troops that came over on ships, the U-boats didn't sink hardly any of the ships?
Not one American soldier was lost. Under Josephus Daniels, next Secretary of the Navy, he lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. I knew him personally. Not one American soldier was lost. We went and zigzagged, flotillas of so many in a group. Lying down there in the hull of that ship at night, 13, way down under the water line, thousands of miles away from the American coast, and wondering whether that submarine's going to hit you broadside. It was a funny feeling. But we got through.
Oh, yes. And then, of course, during the war, there were some horrible new applications and inventions that were used.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Brings me to this, right? Mm-hmm. I have before me here a picture of myself here, and this is Corporal John C. Hosey of Glasgow, Scotland.
Oh, Harvey, you traded uniforms with him for the picture.
He wore a kilt. He was in the famous Black Watch. They wear kilts. They call them ladies from hell. And this is me in my American uniform, but I have his uniform on. And I met him over there in Poitou, Belgium in 1918, and he was a victim. He had survived the first known use of gas in modern warfare. The Germans used it on the Belgian front in 1950. They piped it out into the direction of the armies ahead of them. And he survived by that first gas attack. Corporal John C. Hosey, 1 out of 60. He was 1 out of 60 that was survived.
And now, how did the Germans prepare for the gas attack?
It was right unique idea. The Germans they put the pipelines, like you do irrigation pipelines on farms. They had put the pipes on the ground and directed them towards the enemy lines into Belgium from the German border. and they were filled with gas with jets on them. And then as soon as they got to a time when they felt the wind was going to be blowing in the direction of the enemy in front of them, for 48 hours, that's what they requested.
Oh, they checked with their meteorologists?
They put the word out that when the winds are going to prevail in this direction, away from them, towards the enemy's front line, for at least 44 hours, let us know. Then we'll release the gas. That was the first known use of gas in modern warfare. And they released it, and as fate always steps in, a few hours later, a day or two later, the wind shifted right opposite direction, right back towards the German line, and killed thousands of their own soldiers. And the only way John Hosey said that he survived was he put sand in his sock. He took off his wool sock and put sand in it. And then if he had water in his canteen, that's where you carry your water, aluminum canteen. If he didn't have water, they would urinate on their socks and with this sand, hold it to their nose as a filter. And that's the first gas attack. I mean, the first gas mask. And that's the way they saved a lot of their lives. And he's alive. He survived on account of that, what he did.
And
self-defense.
Do you know about how many out of his brigade did survive?
60-odd in his brigade, and he was, I think, 3 or 4 out of the brigade. He told me that story personally. It's recorded here on the back of this folder. And I've never seen it documented under oath, but that is a true story, and if I live long enough, I hope to run that story down, is authenticate that story. That was the first use of gas by the German army, and if they had known the power they had in that weapon, they could have won the war, hands down, but they didn't know the power of it. That's often the case. That's just a little story on the side.
Oh, yes.
Now, I told you one about my Navy story. I'll tell you one of my GI story, the infantry, if you don't mind. I hope this isn't too brash on the air. If it is, just delete me. This very famous French lady in France befriended our American expeditionary forces and treated us nice, and she loved America, and she's just a wonderful woman. So after the war, our generous America wanted to pay their respects to her for her kindness and considerations and to our American forces. So they brought her over here in America and wined her and dined her for weeks and weeks and carried her everywhere. And finally the time came for her to go back to Europe. And they said, "Now, madam, is there anywhere else you want to go in America?" She says, "Well, no, I don't think so." I said, "Well, is there anything else you want to do before you go back?" She thought a minute, said, "No, I don't believe so." And he said, "Well, now, is there any one person you want to meet before you go back to France?" And she said, "Yes, second thought, there is. I want to meet Madam Bitch, the one that had so many sons in the American Army."
Yes.
Oh, Lord. I could reminisce on and on and on. World War I was, they call it the Great War, but you know the Great War of all time was World War II. World War II is the greatest war, in my thinking, that ever fought by any nation in the world. Best organized, best equipped, largest number of participants, more fatalities, best organized, and the most complete fought war ever in the history of the world, World War II. So that makes World War I sound like a brush fire, in a way. But both of those wars were great wars, and they fought, I said, ironically enough, they were fought by the same adversary, Germany, almost ideally on the same geographic locations in less than 70 years span of time between the two wars. And both of them were just narrowly won by us. They could have been won by Germany.
Oh, yes.
Of course, Hitler was an offspring of World War I, and he wanted to handle World War II and came very near winning it, to tell you the truth.
Yes, they could have won.
Well, generals, you know, make mistakes like everybody else. And often it's a little innocent mistake lies between winning a war and losing it. Fate, I call it, or divine guidance. I think more of that than I do the other interpretation. John, you know, you ought to say something about your war. You know, to me, the Vietnam War is just as interesting to me as maybe World War I is to you. Is this appropriate for you to tell me a little something about Vietnam?
Well,
or do you want me to talk some more about World War I?
I wasn't stationed over in the Southeast Asia. I volunteered for it, and if I had been accepted and gotten through the pilot training, I would have been a warrant officer flying helicopters over there. But I wasn't accepted for that training program. Of course, any of our viewers, if they do have suggestions for possible programs, they can feel free to contact us. But definitely, we probably should get more veterans to get involved and tell us some of their experiences.
I think you're right. I've advocated for a good many years that we have the veterans of the recent wars, most recent Vietnam. We need new blood, fresh blood, young blood, because we're all veterans. We have one thing in common, as I said, and we need to perpetuate that and appreciate each other's cycle of time involvement in the wars. And I believe as we all get older, the more we will come to that concept.
Well, Harvey, we're delighted that you were able to drop by to talk to us today.
Well, so I always find some way or another to talk. I don't always say a whole lot, but I do like to talk, and I like to meet people, and I like to get other ideas, and that's one way we have of being more compatible as a nation, and as a people, and friends. But I would like to just throw in a little plug here, if I may, at the end. As I said, World War I veterans are a fast vanishing species. We won't be long before we'll be out of business when we all go, because we don't perpetuate our organization after World War I. I would like to extend personally as commander of World War I Barrack 690. I would like to tell the people out here, vicinity of Raleigh and Wake County, any person who is a veteran of World War I, please contact me and join our outfit. We need the moral support. We're still hoping someday the government, the grateful government's going to give us a pension. And we're still fighting for that in a way. And we need to keep up our strength.
Yes, y'all didn't.
One pension.
Y'all did not get in.
No, we got
benefit.
$60 and a train fare home. That's what we got. And we were too old when we got the GI Bill of Rights and all the other benefits of veterans, which American Legion fought for. We were too old to participate in that. So we really kind of a special group. We're not asking for something we don't want, don't need. We think we're entitled to it. The average age, educational level of World War I veterans is 6th grade. Now that despite the fact that we had a lot of prominent educated people, but we're just one gallus American red-blooded boys who didn't know any different than to be honest and fight like hell and help their country out. And that's what we were made up of, boys in North Carolina, National Guard, most of them. Had their feet on the ground, good red-blooded American boys. I'm proud to have been one of them, and I'm so happy and proud to be at this stage in life. Came through all of that, still in good health, and I'm so grateful and thankful.
Well, if there are any World War I veterans or other viewers who want to contact Harvey, his number is 787-4076. Our guest for this segment of our Veterans Roundtable has been Mr. Harvey Maness, the commander of the local World War I barracks.